Hi kids. Today we're going to learn how to find the equation of a line given certain facts. I like to think that this is fun and like a mystery that you can solve using clues. The clues we will be looking at will be y. Because we're basing this on the slope-intercept form of a line, our clues are going to be y, m, x, and b. I'm going to try to do several different types of examples since we're not in school today due to the snow day. The first I'm going to start with is quite simple. If I know that m is equal to 1/2 and b is equal to 3, since I know my y equals mx plus b form of the equation, the slope-intercept form, I know right away without doing any other work that y is equal to 1/2 x plus 3. M being the slope, b being the y-intercept. When I'm given those, that's all of the work that I need to do. Of course, it gets a little more complicated from there. What if I am given, I'm going to write this at the top again, y equals mx plus b. What if my clues are that the slope is equal to -4 and it goes through the point to 6? So you might say, I don't really know where to begin because in my clues, all I know is m. However, if you recall, if it goes through 2, 6, that means that 2, 6 is a point on the line and therefore is a solution to the equation. As we know, a solution to the equation is anything that you plug in to make it true, which means that if I plug in 6 here for y and 2 here for x, I have 3 of the 4 clues needed in y equals mx plus b, and therefore I can solve for b. Plugging in 6 for y, I get 6 equals m -4 x 2 plus b. That's the only thing I don't know. So 6 equals -8 plus b. Therefore, b equals 14. The final step of this is just what it looks like in a particular solution of 2, 6. That's just one of the infinite solutions. So the final step is to put it back into the general y equals -4x, that's the slope, plus 14. And that is the solution. Y equals -4x. Looking back at this, if you know the slope and you know a point that it goes through, you can plug in 3 of the 4 clues here and solve for the 4th. What if I'm told, I'm going to get y equals mx plus b. What if I'm told that the slope is equal to 0 and it goes through the point (3, -2). I realize that I've never really gone through vertical and horizontal lines in videos before, so I want to take this opportunity to review what we've done in class around these things. So I'm going to digress a little bit here. And I have found that the camera roll coordinate plane thing has some limits. Let's say I have a horizontal line through this point, and this point is 0, 2. I find this point by 0 is the across move. I go up to 2. Let's say I've got another point over here that is 4, 2. That means I've gone across 4 and up 2. In fact, if you look at any point along this vertical line, you will note that sorry, those aren't evenly spaced, but you will note that you are always going up 2. The y-coordinate is always 2, which means that when I have a horizontal line, the equation is always y equals a constant. And it is the constant that it's going through. So if one of the points on the line is 4, 2, if y is 2 in this point, that means it's 2 in any of the points that a horizontal line goes through. If I calculate the slope of this line, remember slope is y minus y over x minus x. If I say 2 minus 2 over 4 minus 0, that is equal to 0 over 4, which equals 0. So the slope of any horizontal line is always equal to 0. In terms of our problem here, what this means is slope equals 0 is code for I am talking about a horizontal line. And a horizontal line, the y is always constant. So if I want to know the equation of a line going through the point 3, negative 2, that has a slope of 0, that equation is y equals negative 2. This is the constant that it goes through, because if all of the y's are the same, and it's going through this point, that means that all of the y's are negative 2. Similar note, if I'm told that there's no slope, and it goes through the point 2, 5. Let's now, it's the same idea here. If I have a set of axes, I shouldn't make that 5, that's too big. Let's just make it 1. If I have a set of axes, and I have the point 2, 1, let's say that's right there. What I know about vertical lines is that their x's are always the same. This would be the point 2, 0. If this is 2, 1, anything above it, this would be 2, 2, this would be 2, 3. In other words, if it's always going over the same amount, that means that the x-coordinate is always the same. That's how we get a vertical line. So in a vertical line, the equation is always x equals a constant, because you're always moving the same amount across. The thing that varies is how much you are going up and down. I'm always going 2 across here. Here I go down 1, down 2, but that's what makes it a vertical line. So if I wanted to compute the slope of these two, let's say I want to use the slope formula on these 2 points. Again, the slope formula says y minus y over x minus x, change in y over change in x, rise over run. So if I say 3 minus 1 over 2 minus 2, I get 2 divided by 0, and that is not allowed in math. So these lines are said to have no slope. Going back to the original problem, if it says no slope, that is code for this is vertical. And when it's vertical, x is always the same. So the equation for this line, if it goes through this point, and x is always the same, x is always 2. This comes up a lot in this chapter, so I want to make sure that you do understand that, and hopefully this will help. If you get an equation that says no slope, it means x equals something. If you get and it's going to equal the x of the point you're given. If you get an equation, and if you get the clues that say slope is 0, right away that's code for y is always the same. And so it's the same y-coordinate as the point you're given. Sometimes there are varieties of problems that just say the line goes through 2, 5 and 2, oh no, that's not the one I want to do. The line goes through, where am I? 4. Oh, the line goes through the points 1, 1 and 2, 3. And if we're thinking about our y equals mx plus b, we might think, oh no, I don't really have any clues. But y mx b. But the fact is, if I have 2 points, yes, you're right, I can calculate slope. Slope is y minus y over x minus x. Notice I'm not talking about the sub 1 and sub 2, because the truth is it doesn't matter which y and which x you start with, as long as it's consistent. So if I start with 1 and subtract 3, that just means I also have to start with 1 on the bottom, 1 minus 2. So this gives me 1 minus 3 is negative 2, 1 minus 2 is negative 1, telling me that the slope of this line is 2, meaning m is 2. Now again, if it goes through these points, both of them are solutions to the equation, and when something is a solution to an equation, that means it makes it true when you plug it in. So you might ask yourself, should I use the point 1, 1 or the point 2, 3? And the easy answer to that is either one is going to give you the equation, so you should choose the numbers that are easiest. Nothing's easier than 1, so I'm just going to plug in 1 for each of these. So y is 1 equals m x plus b. So we know that that's 2, so I'm just going to subtract 2, and that gives me negative 1 is b. So now I have the two important things for my general form of the equation. This is just what it looks like with this particular point. Now I need the equation for all of the infinite points on the line. So I say every y is equal to twice its x minus 1. If I go on and I extend that idea, let's just do another one. Let's say it goes through 0, 1, and negative 1, 1. Okay, so if I compute the slope, I have 1 minus 1 over 0 minus negative 1. So that means 0 over 1. Uh-oh, I've got 0. Remember, slope of 0 means horizontal line. Horizontal line means y is all the same. And in fact, if you noticed in 2 points that y is the same, that means y is always that number. So in this problem, y equals 1. That is the equation of the line. Similarly, if I take it going through the points 2, 5 and 2, negative 6, I can compute the slope, and this time I'm just going to switch it up. This time I'm going to start with this y and subtract that just to show you it doesn't matter which way you do it. Negative 6 minus 5 over 2 minus 2 is negative 11 over 0. Uh-oh, can't have that. That means there's no slope. No slope means a vertical line, and a vertical line, the x's are always the same, and you might have noticed that. If the x is always the same, if it's the same in 2 points, it's the same in all of them, that means the equation is x equals 2. Let's just keep working on these and do some more, some that don't come out quite so nicely. Let's say that it goes through the point 4, negative 3, and the point 6, 0. So if I compute the slope, doesn't really matter which way I go, I'm going to say negative 3 minus 0 over 4 minus 6. So that gives me negative 3 over negative 2, or a slope of 3 over 2. I want to show you this because there are some mx plus b. Sometimes it's easiest to do they're just things you should know about computing with the fractions. So we know that m is 3 over 2. Doesn't matter which point we use, so I would opt for the one that looks easier to me, and that's y is 0 and x is 6. Don't mix up the x and the y. Make sure you're paying attention. The first one's x and the second one's y. So 0 is equal to, and this is the way I would want you to plug this in, 3 over 2 times 6. Okay, the 3 times 6 is what would happen if I were multiplying 3 over 2 times 6 over 1. That's what it would look like. So just, if it's a fraction, just keep the numbers on the top, and the numbers on the bottom. So 0 is equal to 18 divided by 2 plus b, or 9 plus b. So b is equal to negative 9. Going back to my general form of the equation, I have y equals 3/2 x minus 9. Some of the problems will tell you it has an x-intercept. Of, I don't know, let's say 3, 0, and a slope. Come on, Mary, you can spell. Slope of, let's make it 1/2. Okay, so we know that y-intercept is where a line crosses the y-axis. So you can imagine that what that means is the x-intercept is where it crosses the x-axis. Actually, what it would say, I'm sorry, it will just say that x-intercept equals 3. X-intercept means it's crossing the x-axis here, which means the x-coordinate is 3 when y is 0. So that's code for 3, 0 is a point on the line. From there we can say y, m, x, b. We know that the slope is 1/2. Since it goes through this point, it is a point on the line if it is the x-intercept, I can use this as my clue for x and y. We know it will make the equation true. 3 is equal to 1/2 times 3 plus b. 0 equals 3 over 2 plus b. This is the other thing I want to show you, since some of you, well, I guess in this point, it's not hard to subtract 3 over 2. So b is equal to negative 3 over 2. And the equation here would be y is equal to 1/2 x minus 3 over 2. And you will have, as you do this, let me see if I can see one that would be like that. Let's try this. If it goes through these points, 2, 3, and negative 1, 5. So we know that we have to first do slope. This time I'm going to do 5 minus 3 over negative 1 minus 2. Again, it doesn't matter which of these y's I use first. It's just this. If this one goes first on the top, then this one has to go first on the bottom. This would be 2 and 2. Okay, so 5 minus 3 is 2. Negative 1 minus 2 is negative 3, so we know that slope is negative 2/3. Y, m, x, b. M is negative 2/3. I'm not sure which of these things would be easier, so I'm not sure either one of them is particularly easy, although one tends to be easier. So let's make 5 be y and negative 1 be x. So we know that 5 is equal to m x plus b. So 5 is equal to 2/3 plus b. Some of you are really good at fractions, and that's fine. You can subtract 2/3 from 5, and you can see it's 4 and 1/3. However, if you get nervous about fractions, we can always use fraction destroyer. 15 is equal to 2 plus 3b. So 13 is equal to 3b. I divide by 3, and I would be perfectly happy if you leave it like that. It is, as you already have seen, 4 1/3. So our final form of the equation, we need to put these back in. I'm a little bit short on space, but let's see if we can fit it. Y is equal to negative 2/3 x plus 13 over 3. And I think that that's the form in which your book gives the answers. I think that that gives you really all of the different kinds of equations you need. I think I might have skipped one. Let's try one last one, where we say the points, goes through the points, 3, 4, and negative 1, 4. So we know y minus y, 4 minus 4, over 3 minus negative 1 is 0 over 4. So this means slope 0, be on the lookout. If slope is 0, what kind of a line are we talking about? You got it, horizontal. In a horizontal line, which coordinate is always the same? Yes, and you can even see it in here. Y is always the same. And if it goes through either one of these points and y is always the same, it's y is equal to 4.